Good evening. Welcome to Millennium TV on channel Topstar 95. My name is Kelvin Chisanga. To present this program, Business Connection, I'm joined by Mrs. Kunda Msola. Welcome to this program.
Thank you so much. Good evening, Kelvin.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure having you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, sure. Okay, just to begin with, we want to know more of what we're going to talk about in terms of business, issues. Obviously, we know that when you look at the business landscape in Zambia, we are basically looking at investment to be one of the key components that interplays into the economy. And much of what we have actually been looking forward as a nation is to see how we can get investment into this nation. And much of what we have also seen, it's an element where we have basically, tried to see if FDI can also interplay into that. But again, also coming to a small level of understanding, this investment. We are talking about long-term as well as short-term investment in this case. So in the case of those who don't know, or some of us who will be able to know, what are the long-terms or short-terms in particular from your understanding? Okay,
thank you so much, and good evening, viewers. And maybe just to break it down, just to the simple terms of understanding, what I can say simply is by introducing the subject of investment. So investment is anything that you invest in for the purposes of generating wealth. Yes. So in terms of investments, there are different types of investments.
Okay.
And these are classified under short-term investments and long-term investments. So speaking of short-term investments, these are investments which have a maturity period or a tenure of less than 1 year. So meaning once you invest your money in a particular asset class, then it should be able to mature within a period of 1 year.
Okay.
So maybe should I go on and give maybe examples?
Yes, you can go ahead. Yeah.
So in terms of examples,
can you give some examples of maybe short-term investment, as long as long-term that you think maybe would be ideal as well. I'm sure somebody out there will be able to
be interested
into knowing what are the short terms.
Okay, thank you so much. So in terms of short-term investments, there are short-term investments in terms of fixed-term deposits, and these are offered by most of the commercial banks.
Okay.
I think now including even most of the microfinance houses, they're offering short-term investments. So meaning someone is able to invest their money for a short-term period. If you look at maybe banks, some of them even offer short as 7 days, but these are running from maybe minimum of 7 days up to about 1 year.
Okay.
Yes. So that's just from the term deposits or fixed term interest bearing asset classes. Then there are also on the securities market, there are treasury bills, and these are offered through the central bank. In our case, we're looking at Bank of Zambia. So in terms of their maturity periods, the treasury bills run from a minimum of 90 days, which is 3 months. And then someone can also invest their money for 6 months, which is 180 days.
Okay.
Then someone can also invest their money for 273 days, which is 9 months. And lastly, the 364 days, which is a 1 year investment period. Okay. So those are examples of short-term investments.
Then on the long-term investment, which one can you classify as long-term investment in this case?
In terms of long-term investment asset classes, and speaking from our local markets again, we've got the government bonds or government securities, which are issued yet again by the central bank. So these run from medium-term maturity periods of 2 years. There's also 3 years, 5 years, and we also have 7 years, 10, 15, and they can go beyond even 15 years. So these are some of the long-term investment asset classes. Of course, not forgetting the property investments, because these are also long-term. And in terms of maturity, we could say these are long-term. They could be perpetual. Someone could actually invest in a property investment and hold it for their, life, term. But you could actually convert those at some point and sell and then liquidate into cash.
Oh, fantastic. Okay, having that elaborate, statement, and also exemplifying some of the short-term as well as long-term investment. I would also love to understand from you, if one want to indulge into this, what advice can you give if they want to go into long-term? What are the conditionalities that maybe one will be able to get, attracted to this? What would be the pinning point in terms of features and benefits which should be able to trigger somebody to say, look, let me go into a long term? What do you make of that?
Okay, firstly, I think one needs to understand the objective of investing. So maybe what I can term as the ORR of investing, meaning the objective, they have to understand why they're investing for that long term. And then they also have to understand the risks which are associated with that investment. And then they also need to understand the return. So if someone doesn't understand how that investment is going to give them a return, then it's difficult for them to invest long term. But speaking from the example I gave, like in terms of the government securities, these are well-defined investments, and they've got definite maturity periods. They've got defined returns. So if someone wants to look at what their investment is going to pay, and right from the onset, when someone invests their money, let's say in the government securities, they will know exactly what they will be getting. So these are paying coupons every 6 months. So in the long-term view, someone will be earning from the capital growth, because if you understand how
would you allow me to maybe give a typical example? For example, I've got a gratuity of about 1 million, and I want to invest into either a short term, which maybe I would say treasuries,
yes,
or I want to invest into a long term, which is government bonds. On the basis of this scenario, if I invest into government bonds, do you think I can be having something sufficiently good compared to maybe the treasury bills? Are you able to maybe help us on that?
Okay, yes, that's a very good question. So for treasury bills, like I said, since they are 10-year, the maturity period is only 1 year. So meaning if you invest your 1 million for a period of 1 year, then what you're going to earn at the period of 1 year is the interest which accrues, or not the coupon, but you'll get your yield at the end of 1 year, right? But if you invest that money for into a government bond, which is long dated, let's say we pick 5 years, for argument's sake, because that's quite medium term. So you find that 1 million will be able to pay you an interest every 6 months.
Oh, sure.
Yes, so whilst you're waiting for the bond to mature, you'll be getting your biannual interest, that is every 6 months. So you'll be getting that liquidity, and you'll still be able to get your money at the end of the period when it matures.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So now, what do you think of the investment culture in Zambia? Obviously, we are talking, we're taking it from an individual perspective or even a family level. Do you think investment is something that is of high concern as we speak right this moment? Are people, getting into this, investment culture or pattern of culture?
Okay, thank you so much. In terms of investment culture, I would want to believe that a lot of people now are aware of the investment environment, and there's a lot of information out there which people can tap into, and just to understand how the investment works. So you find that if you look at maybe bringing it down to a family level, find that people are now interested in investing, and this can actually go down into even can be inculcated even the children, because now they do understand what investments are all about. But what's most critical is the whole objective of investing. So are you going to invest money and expect a return overnight? So those are what drives the interest in terms of how people are investing. But the culture of investment, I would like to believe that a lot of people now are aware. They're aware of the products which are out there, and we've seen a lot of people getting interest, and also seeking information on how to invest their money.
Mrs. Chola, I understand that you are an investment specialist as well as a financial advisor, and you have put up a very plan around investment over time for some time. I want to get it from you. If maybe, for example, one has stood up and maybe say or ask a question to say, what do you make of the investment scenario here? Are we having a rightful information or knowledge around investment as a country? Are we driving it with the current education pattern? Do you think it's something that we can simply positively say that this is what is happening?
Thank you so much. I think that's a very good question. I'm sure Mr. Tsanga, you're aware that in Zambia we do commemorate the Financial Literacy Week. I would love to believe that that is one of the deliberate moves that this country has.
Those, you can share more light about what you have been doing regarding Zambia literacy, which has been embraced, with the different players in the market. Are you able maybe just to give us a shape of how you have been doing? I thought maybe this is more concentrated in Lusaka. It's not a countrywide coverage.
No, I think I would love to appreciate that with platforms such as this one, like through the media, I think there's a lot of information that is being disseminated as regards financial literacy. And there are so many players in the market, and I believe a lot of people are being aware and are being educated. And if you recall, I think during the Financial Literacy Week that was being commemorated earlier this year, there was a pronouncement by the Ministry of Education that they're going to enshrine financial literacy into the school curriculums. And I'm aware of...
grade 9 and grade 8?
Well, I would like to believe that they will include it, I think, from a lower level, because I think that would be the best thing to do. Because once you inculcate something, especially in the younger minds, I think it gets enshrined in the DNA, and with a lot of practice, I believe a lot of literacy will be going out. And there's also the financial education, which was launched in 2019, which I believe is running up to 2030, where the agenda is that everybody should be included in that financial literacy. And we are hoping that with that deliberate move or policy, a lot of people have the financial knowledge that they require to be able to invest in the market.
Okay, as a well-vested, experienced investment specialist as well as financial, advisor, what do you make of the situation that we are currently facing in terms of investment classes in this nation? Are we expanding the scope in terms of innovation, or are we looking at maybe trying to enhance some good features around what we have already? Do you think it's something that is working out in expansion?
Well, thank you so much for that question, Kevin. I'd love to believe that that expansion program is yielding positive results, and we've seen a lot of people coming up even with innovative ideas around investment. But of course, what is very critical is for someone, especially the person that is investing their money, to understand what kind of investment it is, because that is very, very critical. So meaning if they have to embark on maybe subscribing to any investment, they have to understand what it is, they have to understand the risks, like I mentioned, and they have to understand the return. So it's not just a question of maybe getting excited about anything that comes on the market and then you just invest your hard-earned money in there. So it's good to have an understanding of what you're investing in.
Okay, as a matter of peculiar interest, I would love to know, you see, the challenge is that sometimes we may have a lot of investment classes and different assets as well that can be involved. If we're to look at the scenario of different forms of investment, like treasury bills, government bonds, real estate, and probably even the capital market, which one would you rate at the current market condition or levels would be most appropriate if I were to invest? For example, I'm trying to get advice from you. Which one can I go for in this case? Which one would you prefer, and it will be a priority that you can set to say, look, I have this billion kwacha, I would love to put a lot of legs in this. I would love to put some eggs in this one. I would love to put my hand in this one. Which one would you possibly consider as the best and the secondary?
Okay, so not so much to actually maybe talk about the best and the least, and obviously understand with my position. So you're talking about diversifying, right? Diversity.
Yes.
So you're talking about having a 1 million kwacha and then want to diversify, because definitely you don't want to place all eggs in one basket.
Exactly.
Yes. So of course the money market instruments, I think, are well paying. I can say that. And because they've got a defined period of maturity, you know when you're investing, and you know when your investment will mature. And then speaking of capital markets, the capital markets, like what we have in the Zambian market, we've got the stock exchange. I'm sure a lot of people, I think, are aware, yes, that the stock exchange does exist, but maybe a lot of people have not ventured into investing. So in terms of the asset class for the capital markets, those are long-term investments. These are investments that you could actually invest in any of the well-performing companies, because on the stock market, yes, we've got listed entities, and these are well-performing companies. So you have to have the knowledge of how that operates. I think in our market we've got stockbrokers. These are licensed stockbrokers who actually carry out that for any investing individual. Definitely you have to reach out to any one of them, and then they take you through the processes. I'm sure there's an account that you have to open, and then they're actually qualified advisors who would advise on what type of maybe company would want to invest in. So it has to take an understanding even from you as the person who's investing to know exactly where you're investing your money.
Okay, so looking at all this information that has been released and which that is out there, do you think the investment culture can change the narrative in terms of business expectation, to change how we should be able to do as SME and even just overall as an economy? Maybe just narrow it down to a business sense. Do you think the investment culture that we have currently could give a lot of inspiration to business?
Okay, thank you so much. So speaking of culture and maybe narrowing it down to the business community or entrepreneurs, I think everyone has to be deliberate about their investment. So meaning they have to have a strategy. What is your strategy around investing? Are you going to invest for a short term? So if, for example, you're in business, I will take an example like maybe you're into supply, right? And then you get orders, right, for your business, and then supposing you have an order, and then your money has not been paid, so you could actually obtain money maybe from a financial institution, and then be able to pay for your order at that time when it's due. And then if you have surplus cash, or when you are paid, sometimes you find that there's a windfall. So if you've got surplus cash, instead of keeping that money just in a bank account, you could actually invest it in a fixed term deposit for the time that maybe you'll be waiting for another supply or another order, when you'll be required to buy maybe your materials or whatever merchandise that you're going to further supply to your clients. So you could use some of these financial instruments to actually, invest, gain more money as you wait for the next consignment or for your next payout. So yes, there are a lot of investment opportunities out there.
Fantastic.
That business could actually
So in your ways, do you think this has given a good impact of in terms of opportunity in the market, as like at farming level? Are we seeing a positive impact in terms of investment? Maybe from the way maybe you have actually been assessing the market from that perspective. Do you think it's something that has given a positive impact?
Well, definitely so. I think whenever there's money or liquidity, there's always a positive impact. Maybe you can, if you want to bring it down to the family level, right? Maybe you talk about now, if we speak about the elephant in the room, where people are accessing their partial benefits. So definitely, that is driving the investment agenda. Because I would say if that money is accessed, and then if someone doesn't want to consume the money, it's better they invest it, they place it into some of these instruments, and of course bring it down to the family level. They have to ensure that even the family members of us even understand what they're doing or where they're placing that money. So I think it's quite important that everybody is just included in the investment activity.
Then, considering the current scenario of securities, do you think the uptake is good? As far as it is concerned with the investment culture, do you think it's something that we are able to see that it has a fair deal?
Okay, if you speak about securities, maybe we're narrowing down to government securities, right?
Yes.
Yeah, maybe I would like to cite, I think the most recent issue, that is the government securities.
Yes.
I think there was an offer of about 2.6 billion. Okay. So by that offer, it meant the government is trying to borrow that money, because when you invest in government securities, you're literally lending money to the government through the central bank. So it's a situation where they are looking to raise 2.6 billion kwacha, and then the subscriptions which came through was just about 1 billion kwacha. That is about, I think, less than 50%, right?
Oh, okay.
And then what was issued out was about maybe just shy of 700,000. Okay. So what that means is that in terms of
maybe just a follow-up question. Sorry to interrupt. Do you think from the time you have actually been mastering investment issues, we are taking a good pattern? Do we see a good level of citizen participation into this, or it's just something that maybe we need also to start discussing, create publicity around this, and ensuring that the media also become part and parcel to pass information? Do you think it's something that has taken a good participation from the citizen?
Yeah, thank you so much. I may not have the statistics related to the citizen, participation,
yeah, sure.
But just from the result, like which I've just mentioned, it shows that there was about 26% participation,
okay,
which for me is very, very low.
Okay.
We are considering that we are an aware or educated population. So we expect, especially with the liquidity that is coming through, people's hands, yes, and with the information which is out there, we expect maybe those subscription ratios, those subscriptions to actually be even exceeding what is on offer. Meaning we're supposed to be seeing these bond issues being oversubscribed than what we saw in the last issue.
Oh, fantastic. Okay. So in terms of investment, where do you see investment impacting, the activities of some of these SME activities? Do you think it's something that maybe we could also look at as a model to moderate many factors in the economy? Is there a way that you could understand investment to be a key pointer in this, facilitating a lot of element into what the SME is required? Do you think it's something that is working in that way?
Okay, in terms of, if we speak about impact, we're talking about investment being able to impact what the SMEs are doing, right?
Yeah.
Or are we looking at it from the aspect of impact investment?
Impact investment.
Okay, yeah. So if you speak about impact investment, of course, the first thing that every investor wants to see out of the investment is a return or profit, right? But there's a new arm or shift to investments, which is now impact investment. Okay. And by impact, it's where investors actually invest their money without necessarily looking at the return or profit, but to see an impact in terms of how that investment is going to perform. Maybe just giving an example, like in our market, we're looking at areas such as renewable energy.
Oh, fantastic.
So if an investor is going to invest in a project, under the renewable energy, definitely the first thing they're looking for is not a return, but how impactful that investment is going to be.
Sure.
Because definitely you're looking at environmental factors, you're looking at social factors, then obviously governance, which governs all investment activities. So we have to look at now the SME coming into play. So
sure,
this is where now the SMEs have got opportunities, because they could actually drive their operations or agenda towards creating impact, and that will actually draw now the other investors to invest in those projects. Sure. Maybe a case in point, like what comes across in my mind, if you look at the environment, we have a situation in our city where we have a challenge with waste disposal, right?
Sure.
For me, that's an opportunity. I mean, if SMEs could actually team up,
sure,
could come up with this project, or just to manage the waste. Because clearly, if you manage the waste, I mean, definitely someone will be interested in investing in that project, and ultimately, that project is going to have a positive impact on our environment. So that building an investment on the other side, as well as managing the environment.
See, speaking about the green economy concept of waste management, you know, it's almost even taking me now into a green bond, but I will not be able to go there.
Okay.
I'm just trying to look at all this. Obviously, considering that we have this culture that we are building up with the inclusion of you know, financial literacy and all that.
Yeah.
Do you think there is appetite at family level or even at individual level is something that is perceived to be good as of now?
Well, if you speak about appetite in terms of investments, the appetite is largely driven by what is available, right? So mostly what drives someone to invest, the first thing they look out for is a return, right? But if you're adding the aspect of maybe impact to it, so then that sort of changes a bit. But in terms of the risk appetite, I think it depends on the person that is investing. So depending on how much, you know, risk they're able to, you know, to control. So as you know, with the concept of high risk, high return. So if the returns are high, you find that most people, yes, will be drawn into an investment regardless, you know, of the risk, because they're targeting the return. So bring it down to family level, I think it boils down to what is in the pipeline, what is available for them to invest in.
Okay, so now as a follow-up question, do we have enough options on the table in terms of investment? Do we see this taking place in the market?
Well, thank you so much for that question. If you're talking about investment options, wow, there are lots of options in our market.
Okay.
Yeah, speaking then from an individual level, even from an SME level or institutional level, there are lots of opportunities for as long as there's demand, because whenever you think of an investment, there's money involved, right? For as long as there's demand somewhere, there's always someone demanding money somewhere, so those opportunities are there. But what really matters is what structure does that investment have? What risk does it have? And ultimately what it returns. So there are a lot of opportunities out there.
Okay, so considering that we have you know, tackled a number of areas in different you know, aspects, talk of investment classes, talk of the short term itself in one or the other, and also the long term. Maybe just to sum it up, what would you think would be you know, the concluding remarks with what we have just discussed? In your conclusion, what do you think Zambia should be able to take at individual level, family level, even maybe if it's possible, organization level, institution? What do you think would be the best model that we should be able to embrace?
Model in terms of
investment. How do we go about it? If maybe, for example, opportunities are presented,